Today, we're going deeper than job titles, frameworks, or delivery methodologies. We're unpacking the real levers of power in an organization: influence. If you've ever thought, I know what the business should do, but they're not listening, this one's for you.
The Better Business Analysis Institute
presents the Better Business Analysis podcast with
Benjamin Walsh.
Welcome back to the Better Business Analysis podcast, and we're going to dive into 10 ways you can lead from where you are, even if no one's handed you the steering wheel yet. That's right, we're counting down 10 ways that you can move from being an analyst to an influencer, and how BAs can shape organizational strategy without the title. Number one is around influence isn't about power. It's about permission. You don't need a title to lead. You need trust. Harvard research shows that soft power, when you don't have the title, outperforms formal authority and complex change initiatives. Yes, there are great studies that say that people in authority make a statement and people will then listen to them and do things. There's lots of experiments about that. But in complex change initiatives, the soft power actually outperforms. And as a BA, you have a unique option to access different business silos, because businesses do work in silos, and our job is to stop that from happening, but it still happens. And you're a unique opportunity to access people in all these silos. That's actually gold. And a mid-level BA can maybe facilitate a customer journey workshop, and that can directly trigger CX uplift, right? A $2 million project. And that's without any senior titles, just earned credibility. And I just want to make a really good point here. When you've got that trust, it doesn't necessarily come across as a badge or as a pat on the back. Okay, it's quite a lonely place as a BA that you've just got to know that people do trust you, but it may not be explicitly, for example, converted into, hey, great job, but they will trust you. Number two is that strategy starts with language, and BAs are translators. Speaking both business and tech makes you invaluable, right? It's still an art to bridge the gap between IT and the business. I said it all the time. Communication breakdown is actually the top 3 reasons why strategy initiatives fail. So, we can use visual storytelling tools like lean canvases to create understanding, and we visualize and we report out. One BA I know used a simple empathy map to reframe kind of backlog priorities. They were actually just a whole lot of projects, and align them with real user pain points. And they just wrapped that up. They were already past that point in terms of user discovery, but they wrapped up how these particular initiatives could actually relate to a common customer and, group of customers, and why, what was the empathy behind that. Number 3 is that know the business better than the business does. So influence grows when you understand what actually drives the P&L. And this has taken me a long time to understand. And I only really understood it because I had to, I've been reporting to executive boards, and I've been on executive boards. And when you understand that really the executives talk about P&L, and that's their world, by the way, then that will help you link what you're doing to their language, which is P&L, profit and loss. So just 20% of BAs say they fully understand their organization's financial model. You should understand that. That's an advantage. It's something, like I said, it's taken me years, probably later in my career, to get there, but it totally makes sense. And so you should learn how your organization makes and loses money. and then show up in those conversations. An example here is that a BA may be embedded in finance and they spot duplicated SaaS spending, right, across multiple systems, and they're actually the same offer, like a CRM system. And they might realize that they spend a lot of money on SaaS systems and that they could be saving, 250K a year by simply asking the right questions or suggesting that maybe they're consolidated. Yes, that's jumping to solutions and not looking at problems, which we say don't do. But really, I guess the problem is it's not the real problem here at a macro level is that there's just no awareness that both these departments are using the same tech stack. Okay, and that's where we can add additional value. Number 4 is to frame your analysis as outcomes and ideally smart objectives and not outputs. Okay, and this is the difference between what a BA does and sometimes a project manager. Project managers should do outcomes, but that's not their training. Their training is outputs, deliverables. Executives don't care about activity, by the way. They really don't have enough time to worry about it. They care about people and staff costs, right? So that makes the activity. But they care about results. And outcome-driven projects are 3 times more likely to deliver real value. You need to swap your delivered requirements with enabled, 15% reduction in support costs, or consolidate these 2 systems, which resulted in a saving of 250K a year by the end of the financial year. If you reframe a reporting upgrade into a case for reducing call center volume, that's really gold, right? The project might get fast-tracked, it might get fully funded. So that language about what are you trying to achieve from the outcome, which is a reporting upgrade, to actually what are we achieving by that, that's really important. And that links to things like an investment logic map and benefits and problems and percentages and what do people care about. And so you're not losing the output, just be clear. You're saying that that's the journey and that might be the end result that we have a new reporting suite. But what is the benefits is quite different from the output. Then number 5, it's that you can become a heat-seeking missile for decision fatigue. Strategies often fail because leaders are overwhelmed, not underinformed. They actually get too much information and the wrong information. Executives face, 70 plus significant decisions a week. That's how many decisions they're making. That's why they're in all those meetings. And if you simplify decisions, don't just share data, but distill the path forward. So you say, hey, we've got a problem. It's like, okay, don't be a problem, bring me a solution. That's what they would say. You can define, hey, look, I've defined what the problem really is, the root cause. Here's the data behind it. There's some solutions. Here's my recommendation. That's so powerful. And you can use like a 3-point decision matrix and frame trade-offs. And the CEO can make that decision in like 10 minutes. It's really, really simple. And you find that actually a lot of decisions in an organization, that's how it ends up anyway. You go the long way through committees, middle management, reporting. It eventually gets to someone's desk on the exec in like a sentence form, like, okay, give me the briefing. They want funding for this. This is what it's going to do. Seriously, that's how it gets distilled. And those executives are so busy. So we need to make it easy. Number 6 is that you need to build your influence in the gaps between meetings. And what I mean there is that the real moves are made between meetings. 85% of decisions are pre-aligned before the official meeting. I'm going to say that again. 85% of decisions are pre-aligned. Basically, they're less likely to change. So people have made their mind up before the official meeting. So you need to book coffee catch-ups. You need to recap one-on-ones. You need to plant seeds along the way. And this is really still a very successful strategy for persuasion and influence. And a good friend of mine who happens to be my boss on one of my pieces of work at the moment, he's great at this. He's really good at doing the pre-meeting. So when it comes to the meeting, it's simply just kind of a yes, no at that point. And if you run like 15-minute pre-meetings with all stakeholders before a strategy session, by the time they hit the room, their solution, right, has majority support. They've already done it. And this is politics. This is politics. This is the non-lobbying, public-facing side of politics. It's exactly what they do. Number 7 is that visuals win arguments. I love this one. This is so true. No one reads a 40-page doc, 100-page doc, it doesn't matter how much it is. Actually, they read the small ones. But they do understand the diagrams, and they'll come back to those. They love it. The simpler, the better. And sometimes it annoys me how simple the diagram needs to be, and you feel like, well, all the value is stripped away. But I understand why that is the case. And visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text by the human brain. Just think about that. And this is the, a picture paints 1,000 words. Well, actually, a picture paints 60,000 words, if you look at it that way, because your brain is processing it faster. Use journey maps, swim lanes, trade-off charts, cut through the noise. Decision makers, risk matrix is another one. This is where the risks are. These are the options. I have mapped using user journey maps for onboarding, for example, or a call center flow. And it's always the number one diagram where people go, okay, I can see where that, what they might say is a revenue leakage point, which is a CFO term. But they can see it. They can see that that is a problem in the call center flow. And that's where you need to get to. And once you start setting that as the reset, as the language you use, those simple diagrams, they'll want you, they'll trust you, they'll value you, and they can see it. And they will not be able to go back to those diagrams. So that saves you all that time, because you don't need to just produce all these words. I mean, I've just produced a document, 32,000 words. And I'm just thinking, people are going to read that once if I'm lucky, and they're just going to remember 1 or 2 diagrams. Number 8 is to model scenarios. Okay, so don't just analyze the current state. It's probably a real big trap for those who are IIBA trained, who go into the world and they do current state analysis. It's changing now. It's changing now, but it hasn't come from the BA world. But BAs are picking up on the fact that it's a waste of time. Influence lives in the what if. It doesn't live in the past. So if you do some scenario modeling, it can increase your buy-in by like 50%. Don't just report, offer future pathways. Show the options. The future state is focus is another way of saying this. I've presented potential cost reduction models before: cut, automate, outsource, and let the decision makers choose based on your recommendation. And then, that is making it really easy for you. What options do we actually have here? I understand all that. I trust you. What options do we have? Okay. And why do you recommend that? And that will actually it will trigger any unwritten or unsaid emotions at that point. Okay, we don't want to reduce staff, or where actually our preference is not to outsource, or automation. I've been involved in automation projects before and they've been disastrous. And a lot of execs have those projects along their way, and they're almost tied to that legacy. So sometimes their view of the what if is shaped by the past, but it's not your job to map their past demons. Number 9 is to reframe the deliverables, the actual outputs, in terms of value stories. So requirements are just kind of the how. I know we say it's the what, but it is kind of the how we get there through function. But strategy lives in the why. So value linked user stories, right? They can double stakeholder satisfaction scores. So what you do is you add a field to every requirement, every story, and you add business value, right? So it's the so that I is actually the point, but sometimes that so that I is more of a functional. So you go, so that I can, allow a customer to get from A to B. But in this, you say, what's the value for the business? What do we get? Which is linking down to the response, the capability from the business side. It will actually help, especially if you need internal sign off here. So if you in the backlog user stories, just add a value outcome column, and product owners can actually start reprioritizing based on the benefit, not just guessing what they think. And number 10 is an important one. Make peace with rejection, then keep showing up. And this is just a general business top tip. I hate this. I mean, one of the reasons I've been involved in startups, but one of the reasons why I kind of cringe and get a bit sick of doing startups is that you just fail a lot of times, right? And that one time that you push harder, you don't fail again. I'm pretty good in the world of projects. When I work for someone else, man, I just keep going. But when it's myself, I'm really hard at facing rejection. But influence is a long game, and it does take about 7 to 10 repetitions for ideas to stick with decision makers. That's why you need to have all these meetings beforehand. So you need to be polite, persistent, and influence is noticed more than it's acknowledged, as I said before. So it's noticed in their brains, but not acknowledged that you have done a good job. And I'll give you an example here is that I've pushed like through a feedback loop more than 3 times. I'm currently going through a feedback loop. I'm probably up to the 9th piece of stakeholder feedback. I'm in all seriousness, I'm kind of over it. And it's hard and there's crickets. But if you keep going, you will get to the result you need. Okay. So whether or not you're like a seasoned BA or in your first day as a BA career, just remember strategy isn't owned by the C-suite. It's shaped by the people closest to the problem, and that's actually you. So the question isn't when they give me a seat at the table, when are they going to, or are they going to invite me? It's about what am I doing already that makes them want to pull a chair out at the table. I'll see you next week.